Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we are proudly celebrating 4 years of live streaming. Thank you to each and every one of you who have been with us on this journey. Today's show is Iconic Women. I'm Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, and I'm very excited about the guests we have today. Someone who has believed in my mission and whose own personal mission has actually crossed over with something that I experienced in my life. And this woman is truly iconic. Her name is Tracy Cram Perkins, and she is the author of Dementia Home Care Before, During, and After. And she also has a television show by the same name. Tracy has sold thousands of books around the world, and the information that she personally has experienced herself, she has been able to capture into words, into an award-winning book that has helped me and so many other people. Tracy is a 4-time caregiving survivor. She has helped family members who have had dementia, Alzheimer's, and she has gone the distance, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. And if you've ever taken care of anyone, you are truly iconic. Let's welcome our iconic woman today, Tracy Cram Perkins. Hello, hello.
Hi. What an intro. I'm all choked up.
I'm getting choked up too. How about that? And nothing's prepared in advance, as you know. It's all off the cuff. So it's all true. And Tracy, before we get into the work that you're doing, as we're on the show, Iconic Women, are you familiar or a fan of Greek mythology?
Yes, I am.
So when I first started putting this show together, I was really thinking about the Greek goddesses and which ones that we align ourselves with. So when you think of Greek goddess, does one stand out more for you as in terms of that's really demonstrating part of or incomplete who you are?
I think of Diana because she's the huntress, and it takes that kind of perseverance to get through life. I mean, you have to keep looking for whatever it is that you need to solve the problem of that moment, especially like for me when I was doing caregiving and trying to tackle those problems and figure out how to take care of something. And so I identify more with her than any of the other goddesses. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I can definitely see that. And, you know, it's interesting when we think back to the beginning of time, which, you know, we could start wherever that is. But what I'm thinking of when we think about the days of cavemen and cave women and the assigned roles that they had, that I don't know if there was any discussion, it was just figured out. But the women were really the caregivers. And so I think going way back, that women have always been iconic in some way or another. But you, in your experience, your experiences have truly been iconic 4 times over, and really taking iconic to a new level, because the work that you're doing, you didn't just write and have a book published. You actually have gone to the streets, so to speak. You have actually been with people in different parts of the country talking about dementia home care and how we can actually, as caregivers, take care of ourselves and live a life that is not filled with guilt and shame because we don't know everything. And in the book that you wrote, Dementia Home Care Before, During, and After, you have so much information and so many resources. It's amazing that you have time to do anything else. So I really take my hat off to you, Tracy. Tell us about your journey, the first time you were a caregiver, and What was that experience like?
Oh, the very first one was my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she had esophageal cancer. It had advanced to a point where they elected to do surgery, and the surgery from the anesthesia gave her dementia because she was over 70 at the time, and we didn't know that she was susceptible to that type of dementia. We didn't even know what dementia was at the time, actually. And so she was our first patient zero, I guess you could call her. And we were scrambling, trying to get help, trying to do anything. And it was before the Affordable Care Act. So there was still a cap on insurance coverage at the 2.5 million mark. And once they hit that, my parents were dropped. They lost everything. They had to sell off everything they had and move into an assisted apartment in order to uh, just survive, basically. And my whole family and I rallied around them, trying to help them and get help coming into them. They ended up being on Medicaid, Medicare, additional programs, anything we could find to have enough money to cover the care that we were needing. Eventually, and she lived, this is the beautiful part, the diagnosis said she would only live 5 years after the surgery. She lived 8. And it wasn't until the last year that she really lost the quality of life. And she went on hospice and was bedridden. But up until that point, she didn't remember a lot of things, but she still knew who we were until about the last year of her life. And at that point, we kind of lost that connection. So what I did with her is the only way I could connect with her was through story. And I was reading to her every day for 2 hours. And we read the entire Cat Who series. And 2 days after we finished, she passed away.
Wow. I'm going to take a
Mhm.
moment for that. Tracy, what you just shared, it's so profound, and it's not something that we learn in school. We don't learn how to take care of someone else, especially when it's a parent or someone who's older than we are, and now the roles are reversed. And so I know myself, my mother had dementia, as you know, because you were really supportive and there for me. I went through a lot of phases where I felt really helpless and I felt really angry because I wanted my mother to be who she had always been. And so, how do we remain iconic? And at the same time, we have to be adaptable, and we also have to give ourselves grace, and we have to give our loved one grace. And that's a big question. I know I'm putting it out there, but it's really hard. I know that you have a way to streamline things. So tell us a little bit about
Okay, I want you to know that I failed at this very magnificently for 18 months with my dad, that I could not cross that bridge without actually my husband being the one saying to me that I was better than this because I was grieving, and you don't realize what ambiguous loss is. I didn't even know it was a term at the time. Um, I wanted him to be my dad. In my head, he was the man that um, I knew when I was growing up. So my memories ended with him at 18 as far as who I imagined my dad was. And so when he moved in with us, I went immediately into the father-daughter role, and that could not work. And like you said, it's heart-wrenching because you've got that loss. It's literally we're picking the threads of our life and pulling it apart, and it's really hard to get past that. But being able to see what's going on with them, giving ourselves permission, and that's the big thing, and also having support, because you can't do this without support. But you have to be able to understand what's going on in your loved one's brain to help you reach to the other side of that, because they look normal. They don't show any signs of disease until far, far into the disease. And so everything about them just appears normal, and yet it isn't. And so when they're developing these holes in their brain, I, as a person who didn't have any background at the time, had no clue what was going on. Fortunately for me, I had a lot of friends who were in the medical profession who guided me and taught me what was going on so that I could better care for my family and then not carry that guilt that comes part and parcel with dementia caregiving, because it is so hard to get past that point and to give ourselves permission to say, hey, I want to see the collateral beauty, not the collateral damage. And it's a very, very difficult bridge to cross, but you can do it.
I love the way you just said that, collateral beauty instead of collateral damage. That's really worth thinking about. One thing I'd like us to talk about is when someone, at least in my experience, has dementia, they tend to repeat themselves. And it's the same questions, the same statements over and over and over again. And so with my mom, I would just get to the point where, why do you keep asking me the same question? And then later, of course, I started feeling really badly because I had spoken to you and I read your book and I thought, she doesn't know that she's actually asking the same questions. But I never felt really iconic or graceful. I just felt kind of desperate and sad. And so I think that's part of the process. And then I think the other thing is that not knowing how our loved one actually feels about what's going on. And so I would tell my mom, mom, you have dementia, which I learned later. That was the wrong thing to say. But they don't know exactly what's going on. And they might have feelings of fear. I don't know. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. They no longer know. It's called anosognosia. We're using the Greek here. Anosognosia is a way of protecting the brain so it doesn't recognize there's brain disease, so it doesn't. You think you've trusted your brain your entire lifetime, and you start noticing when things are going wrong, but then it gets to a certain point where it crosses over and the brain says, "Ein Minuten, we're not going past this. We can't cope with it." So that's the point that you're talking about, where you were correcting her and saying, "No, no, no, it's this." And that's a really hard thing to get over. It takes a lot of practice. It also takes a lot of forgiveness for ourselves to get past that point, because we're human. We're exhausted. We are trying to do so many things that are so far outside of our experience, and we don't always forgive ourselves. So once you get past that, once you understand that we can have tools to empower them to make it easier for all of us. A really simple tool that might save somebody's sanity here is using like a whiteboard, where like with my father, this is what we did. We put the day, the date, and his schedule for that day. And at the bottom of the board, I left a space for my frequently asked question of the day. And whenever my dad would start asking me questions, I would laugh the first time he asked me, because I don't want to have high blood pressure. I didn't want to have a heart attack right in front of him. I needed to be calm. So I would laugh the first time he'd ask, and then he would ask me the second time, and we would both laugh together. "Oh yeah, it's such and such." I said, "Let me write that down so I don't forget, because I'm getting really busy." And I would write it at the bottom of the board. The third time it came around, I would say, I would suddenly become really busy. "Dad, can you help me? Can you read it off the board? I can't remember." And he would go over and he'd look at the board and he'd read it out loud and he'd go, "Oh." Suddenly, I'm transferring the agency back to him. He actually had a tool that had the answers for him, and he could find his own answer. Sometimes it would take 3 or 4 tries after that. Sometimes he would cotton on right away, and then he would start automatically looking, because we have emotional related memories. We remember the things that make us happy and the things that make us sad. That one was giving him satisfaction, so it was making him happy. He could solve his own problem. So that was one of the tools that we used. And then when we were in the car, I would carry one of those canary notepads, and because I knew the frequently asked question was going to be, "Where are we going?" And I would just write it in large print on the pad and then have him hold it for me, because I can't hold that while I'm driving. I need your assistance. So he would hold it for me. And then when he'd ask where we're going, I'm saying, "I can't look off the road. Can you read what I wrote on the pad?" And again, it was just repetition, and it would answer that frequently asked question. And that helped. And we both laughed. We would both laugh. Give yourself permission to laugh. It's better to laugh. And if you need to cry, go cry by yourself.
And we're going to talk a little bit about laughter later in the show, because you have a great laugh.
Thank you.
Something I'd like to have you weigh in on is, one of the things that I dealt with was, it was just me and my mother, and we were together for about 3.5 years. And so I created this television network during that time. I would find that there was really no one who could understand what I was going through on a day-to-day basis. And I noticed that many people I had in my life, they just disappeared because I guess they didn't want to hear about it. I don't know. I can't judge. But it started to feel very isolating until I met you. And then I read your book and you really got it. So for people who are living in a situation where sometimes family members or friends, they don't mean it, but it's kind of like, you know what, I'm so busy, or I don't really know the answer. And they kind of just detach themselves.
Mhm.
And so let's talk a little bit about your book, because your book can be the bridge from feeling that isolation and loneliness to actually feeling like, okay, I've got some answers here. How did you put the book together and how long did it take?
Well, okay, it had been in my head for quite a while. I was part of it grew out of my frustration about having my dad melting down in front of me and me not knowing the answer. And I bought 30 to 40 books on dementia, Alzheimer's disease, everything I could get my hands on, and I read them all. And they all had, little snippets of information here and little snippets of information there, but it wasn't all in one place, or it wasn't in written in a way that it was accessible to me. And it was very frustrating because my dad would be melting down about something. He'd be throwing silverware at me because I did something I didn't realize I was doing. And I would wait till he calmed down. And then I would go to a book, trying thinking, okay, I read something about that. And I would be looking everywhere and couldn't find it. I ended up tabbing everything. And if you ever came to my house, you would see I've got tabs in all of my books. But I was marking them down so I could find them faster. And finally, I was getting really frustrated with, why am I not just putting this in one central location? And so I just started compiling it into something that was working for me, and it became kind of the base for the book. It wasn't, I mean, the book you see now, but I mean, it was notes to me saying, okay, do this, try this, try this. This works, this doesn't. This works great on this day if he's doing this, it just so that I could kind of keep track of where I'm going wrong, where I'm going right. And then it became kind of intuitive. And then my dad was teaching me also, because the one thing I hadn't been doing until I had an incident with doormats was I wasn't asking his opinion. I never asked his opinion. I didn't ask him, what do you think about blah, blah, blah. I just assumed I was getting it right until I got it wrong and then trying again. So I had an incident where I was getting tired of mud being tracked into the house, and I asked my husband if they could wipe their feet when they came in. And I went to the local hardware store, bought a couple of doormats. One I put inside the door, one I put outside the door. And my husband promised they would wipe their feet. They were coming back in. I knew they were coming in, so I was standing by the door. I wanted to see how this worked. And my husband dutifully wiped his feet. Now, my dad would always mimic what my husband was doing, because my husband was a safety anchor for him. And he knew if Daniel did it, he could do it too. And that was what he was supposed to be doing, so that no one ever thought something was wrong with them. But this time, he looked down, he looked at the doormat, looked at me, never said a word, turned around and walked in through the garage. And I didn't know what he was trying to tell me, but I knew something was wrong and I had to figure it out. And I had to experiment with it for a while. I moved it to different doors. I tried different things. I took it away, put it back. Always the same result. Finally, one day, I just was standing there with my dad. We were getting ready to go for an appointment. And I looked at the door and I said, Dad, can you tell me what's wrong with the door? I didn't ask him why he wasn't going through. I just asked him what's wrong with the door, because I knew he would melt down if I accused him of something. So he just said, Tracy, if you fixed the hole in front of the door, people wouldn't be afraid to use it. And there was my answer. So I was letting the dementia define him, or in my mind, instead of asking him, because he was not defined by his dementia, he was still able to teach me.
So, Tracy, what was the hole?
The hole was the black doormat. It was a black doormat, and black looks like a hole. And I learned later that black looks like a hole. White is great for disguising things, kind of like my shirt today. You blend in with the background, so it's flat. You can't see it, because what I didn't know is that with brain diseases comes something called a chromatopsia, and literally it's color blindness. They start to lose their ability to distinguish color. The blue cones in the eyes, there's 3 different types of cones in your eyes, but the blue ones are the fewest in our eyes, and they tend to go first. And so everything starts looking, washed out. So if you don't have enough contrast, and maybe you've noticed this after we've gotten over the age of 50, perhaps this might be an issue where we need more light to see things. We just need a little more light to be able to see and read stuff. Well, it's like that, but on steroids for somebody with dementia. They need more help with the contrast. As I was discovering these things with my dad, and my husband was helping me because he was not so close to this. I had, in essence, a disinterested third party who could see from the outside in and see where I was and needed help. And so I had an experience, and I now laugh about this. This was really awful of me. My dad's favorite chair, we moved it into our house, and I couldn't get him to sit in it, even though I was explaining to him where it was. It was the same color as the entire room, first of all. I should explain that. It blended. Now, my dad was an interior designer in life, so I thought this would be really cool to have it in the living room with us. He couldn't see it. He kept telling me there was no chair there. I turned him around and tried to get him to sit down, and he wasn't having that either. And finally, my husband walks in, threw a red blanket on it, walked my dad out of the room, threw a blanket on it, and brought him back in. He sat down in the chair, and I'm like going, okay. Just hung my head. It was so you just, it's stupid. I mean, I did all sorts of things wrong, which is why the 25% that went right is in my book. It's the stuff that will be the toolbox to help people. I wanted to make sure that, unlike what I was going through, you could fan through the book, find stuff. You could run your finger down that 8-page table of contents that's on steroids, find the challenge of the moment, and turn to that page and have the answer right there with a little explanation of why it's going wrong and what you can do, because we don't always recognize it. We're sometimes so close to the problem, and we're too tired to think logically. We haven't had that moment to step back and breathe and go, oh, you need that moment, but sometimes you just don't have it. Everything's going wrong. Things are getting knocked over. Somebody's melting down. There's a hallucination going on. You're late for an appointment with the doctor. I mean, everything can go wrong in that moment. And if you don't give yourself the presence of mind to step back, breathe, maybe both of you need to breathe, or laugh, and then be able to say, okay, I can't deal with this now. I will look at it later when I can actually have a moment. So but there's so many things that you don't know when you're in that moment, and you're on crisis mode constantly. And it's trying to figure things out so that you don't have to be on crisis mode. And maybe you can even get your loved one helping you with whatever it is you need the help with. But it also depends on your willingness to cross that emotional bridge to join them where they are in their reality, because they won't be on the same timeline we are. Their brain disease, their brain is shrinking, it's developing holes. They're going to go back to whatever their oldest memories are that are still intact, and that's where they're going to live. So we need to find out where they are in their timeline and join them in their truth. And a lot of times, once we do that, we have a much better outcome. But you don't know that until you try or read my book.
I highly recommend reading the book. Thank you, Tracy. So one thing I'd love to have you discuss a little bit about is, how do we ensure that our loved one is still being treated with dignity and with respect? Because that can be a big place where things start to go downhill, because not only is the person suffering with dementia, but they're also at the point where people are not treating them with respect. They don't get any decision or say over what's going on in their life.
And that's a very difficult thing, because again, it's an emotional issue. The first thing to think about is, do you personally feel like you're being respectful? Because I have, it's 2 Rs: respectful, responsible, and safe. When I make that decision for them without their input, is that respectful? Yes or no? Is it responsible? It could be, depending on the situation. Am I making a safe decision? So I need to go through those steps first. And if I can't answer yes to all three, I need to see if I can involve my loved one in that conversation. Sometimes we just have to guide them. We already know what their favorite thing is, and the last thing they hear is what they'll choose. And you don't want to give them more choices than they can handle. So we have to understand where they are in their disease. So if somebody's in, the early moderate, it's easier for them to be engaged. But if somebody's heading towards late moderate to severe, at that point, we need to step in and say, okay, mom or dad or whoever we're taking care of, would you like this or this? Offering their favorite thing. Because a lot of times what's going to happen, they're going to order the last thing. They won't remember whatever it is they've agreed to. And then when you present whatever it is that they said yes to, they're going to say, I didn't order that, or I don't want that. That's not what I said, because they don't remember. So it's better if we experiment and then also forgive ourselves. Okay, yes, we made a mistake there. It's okay to make mistakes. The one important thing is having body language that is open and accepting versus somebody who's going like this and they're looking stressed, because our loved ones, we are their safety anchor. They are going to mirror our behavior because we can read body language all the way to the end. So if you are stressed out and you're getting angry, they will too, because they're going to give what they get. So it's just keeping in mind that we are the guidepost, we are the safe place of safety. And as hard as it is, the more calm we can be, the easier it is for us to take care of them.
Thank you, Tracy. Great points there. Can you talk a little bit about sometimes the fear of water or bathing?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, let's look at the fear of water itself. You can drown in 2 inches of water, but I talked about achromatopsia a little bit ago too. Part of that is if we see something that has glare or is moving or shimmering, we don't know how deep that is. So if you cannot see the depth, that can be terrifying. Also, as we age, our skin thins and the caps on our nerve endings thin with our skin. So it could be it's something like if it's too hot or if you've got shower water striking the skin, it could be painful. It could be too much water pressure. Some places you go when you travel, you might notice the extraordinary water pressure in other places where they have flow restrictors and the flow is more gentle. It could be that. It can also be that besides causing pain, it's a question of dignity. Are we respecting our loved ones' dignity? Do they want to be exposed like that in front of anyone, or would they prefer to be covered? So we kind of have to play detective with the water, because we don't know if they've said they've already bathed, they may or may not remember it. We may not be giving them a good encouragement. Telling them you stink will never work. So don't ever use you stink, you need to take a bath. You need to find a way to invite them to bathe that encourages them to bathe. Also, if they are afraid of water, it may be that it's time to do a sitz bath. Instead of having water pouring on them, you can give them a washcloth bath. I mean, whatever works to accommodate their fears.
Thank you, Tracy. And I apologize, we have some background noise going on here. So I'd love to have you actually bring this all together. So as an iconic woman, and even I'm going to span this to iconic people, okay, we're talking about caregiving, which is such an important role. And someone in the family is always the one who's on the front line. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because the family may have a number of members, but there's always one person typically that is the one that ends up doing the majority of the work.
And that is true in many, many family situations. Not every family situation is a loving family situation, so there's going to be many different versions. But what usually ends up happening is a couple of things. There's one person, sometimes it's the best person for the job, sometimes it's the person that's available that might not be the best person for the job. What we have to consider, though, also is what can our loved one afford? What can we afford? And then there's the point of some people are so afraid or so emotionally raw, they cannot cope with the caregiving. So another aspect is people are afraid of things they don't know. And so fear becomes false evidence appearing real. So people will suddenly become busy because they don't know how to deal with and cross that bridge, emotional bridge or bridge of knowledge, to help their family members. And I realized that as the key point family member, it was very difficult. But for me, however, I was in a loving caregiving situation, and so I did have lots of help, but I also had to learn to ask for help, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to do it all because I had that lie that I could do it all, and I couldn't. Just offering somebody to bring over a chicken casserole, or to maybe help with like laundry or something, just something where they can give you a few moments of respite, where you have one less thing on your plate. It's easier if we can teach people the easy things and not just throw them into the deep end of the pool with no guidance, because that's what it feels like if you've never cared. You feel for someone, you feel like you're being thrown in without a life preserver, and maybe the water's on fire around you because an oil rig just exploded, because that's what it feels like. And we want to have guidance. If we can just have a little bit of guidance, it's so much easier with just a little bit of knowledge spoon fed to us, or however we get it, to make it a little easier. And then the beautiful thing about caring for someone with dementia, if you are helping someone who is a caregiver, it is going to create a deep emotional bond, something that will carry you through for the rest of your life. It is unbelievable what will happen and how transformative it is if you can get past that fear. It changed my life completely.
I would agree with you, Tracy. I'm right there. I feel the same way. My mom and I had such an incredible bond. So I'd like to go backwards a little bit. What are some of the things that we can be aware of that could be indications that this is potentially going to be a person who has dementia or Alzheimer's? Is there something we can see years ahead of when it actually occurs?
Oh, absolutely. It's usually in the small things first. Okay, normal aging. You have to understand that as we age, our brain shrinks. That is part of normal aging. Brain disease is when it starts developing holes. That's when you start seeing things that becomes noticeable and different, where somebody who used to be on top of everything, all the appointments, the family history, whatever it was, they never missed a beat. When they start struggling for remembering things, or they misplace something and they can't find it, or they start covering, or they start having coworkers notice there's an issue, and maybe they are getting in trouble quite a bit at work. It's just small things. It could be that you can't remember how to do the math, or you don't remember maybe what your password is. Now, it's normal for us to forget passwords if we don't use them every day, but let's say it's a password you use every single day and you can't remember it, and you don't have it in your key or your offside, whatever you're using. It is an indicator that something's wrong. If you lose your keys, but you can retrace your step to find them, that is not dementia, that's normal aging. If you can't remember what the key is for, that might be a sign. If you walk into a room and you forget why you walked in, you turn around, you walked out, and you went, oh yeah, I was going to get X, and you go back in and get it, normal aging. If you walk into a room and you don't remember where you are or why you're there, that's a problem. So you want to look for little indicators. If you are starting to have issues with driving, if you drive a car and you start scraping the sidewalks, or you start seeing your family member has scraped tires, that might be an indication, if they never had that before, that something is starting to fail. It could be also if they start having problems cooking, if they start burning things that never got burnt and they aren't like highly stressed. Let's say somebody's going through a divorce or a death, that's a different story. That's grief. But if this is something that's now happening regularly, where they suddenly walk away from the stove because they remember something else and then it catches on fire, that's a problem. So it's watching for small things. If bills start getting missed, that can be a problem, especially if they've always paid all of their stuff on time. So it's just little things to keep track of. If you start seeing them add up, if you catch it early enough, it's something that you might be able to dial back. If you let it go or ignore it, this is something that will become a full-blown brain disease and you cannot prevent.
Tracy, thank you so much. So what's coming up for me is that there might be people watching going, oh my gosh, I went into the room and I couldn't remember, but then an hour later, so, I left my keys somewhere, but then I remembered, and you did address that. But for people who are watching and thinking, oh my gosh, I personally am doing these things, when is a good time to go and have an assessment, and what kind of assessment can we get from the healthcare industry?
Okay, and that's a tricky one because all of the rules have changed, including with Medicare. So getting in, you want to start with your primary care physician, and you need to have a screening. Then if you can get it, because not everyone that is watching this will have this access, getting into a neurologist if something is found. So you want to make sure, first of all, that you have your prescription medications, if you're taking any, go to your pharmacist first. Have them do a drug interaction report for you that you can take with you to that primary care meeting. You want to also discuss any health changes you have noticed. Make sure you have that all written down so you have a complete list with you, because you only have 15 minutes in that meeting to see if you can get to the next steps. You want to be your own advocate. They The next thing after that is, if there's nothing that's on the drug interaction report that's causing a problem, you also want to, are you still exercising? How is your diet and nutrition? So you want to look at the things that are going on around you. Are you self-medicating? So we want to look at, okay, what are the problems? But if you can get into that primary care physician and get that appointment for an assessment afterwards, if they're thinking that something is an issue, they're going to administer something like the MOCA, which is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, where they'll do a little thing like maybe have you draw a picture of a clock, remember 3 words. They'll do things like that. That's kind of an indicator of whether you are having a cognitive issue or not. If you can no longer draw a clock properly, if you can't draw, say, a square with a triangle intersecting with one line, similar to those things, they might go farther and have you spell world backwards, or whatever these tests are. But what that does is it's checking certain functions of your brain to see if there is any cognitive decline. It also could be you're having an issue with diabetes if you're a diabetic, and you want to check for metabolic disorders. So there are many different diseases that can be checked for that might not yet be brain disease but could turn into a brain disease. So it's important to start first with bringing, if you're taking prescription medications and any supplements, have your pharmacist do that drug interaction check first before you go in, because forearmed gets you farther.
Thank you, Tracy. I know we're coming to the end of the show, but I do have another question for you, which is, I've heard this from people, and you and I have discussed it before, but when someone is living with dementia or Alzheimer's, I've heard people say, let them have whatever they want. Let them eat what they want. Let them drink what they want. What are your thoughts about this?
At some point, I agree. Let them have whatever they want. It's now about quality of life. Now, there are going to be some people, we don't know what trauma they've gone through. So it could be that they are grieving for some trauma and they want to self-medicate. If it becomes an issue where it's causing dangerous behavior around them, then don't do it. But no one who has a brain disease, if they go all the way through the disease, will die fat. So if you're concerned about them being overweight, it won't happen. I'm not saying allow them to become obese, but I'm just saying that allow them to have what gives them joy or comfort or is soothing, because we don't know if somebody's been molested, if they've been raped, if there's been some other thing that's gone on that was a tragic incident in their life that they witnessed, and that will be coming back to them as they're progressing through the brain disease.
All right, Tracy, last question for today. I've got so many, but for people who are doing caregiving at home, okay, that's what I did and you did. Some people don't want to do that at all. Some people say, well, we're calling up and we're putting them in the home or we're sending them to the place. How do we know when that's the next move, or even if it's the right move?
Well, if a spouse was, let's say the wife was caring for a husband and the wife dies, or vice versa, that would be okay. You might not have a choice, especially if they don't have children. If you don't have children and you're a solo ager, then that might not be an option, any other option for you. It's advanced planning is a very important part to everything. If you can get your family together and plan in advance, find out what your loved one's wishes are. Some people will make you promise the impossible, which might be never put me in a home. I never want to be in a home. There are times, including in my own family, where we had family members whose health declined so rapidly we had no choice, because we didn't have the medical skills to take care of them. We couldn't administer the IVs, we couldn't do all of these things, and we couldn't get the help in home. So we ended up having to put them in a skilled care. If that's the case, do not abandon your loved one. Visit them. Anyone whose family visits them will get better care. So keep that in mind.
What a beautiful way to sum up the show today, Tracy. Thank you so much. And we're going to be closing out the show with your education little commercial that we have. So please stay tuned for that. And then there'll be more information about the book. Tracy, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who would you like to contact you?
Well, anyone who's caregiving, you can reach me at my website, tracycramperkins.com, or you can email me at tracy@tracycramperkins.com. So that's the easiest way to reach out to me. But yeah, if you're caregiving and you need assistance, you don't know where to start, feel free to reach out to me.
All right. And we're also showing Tracy's LinkedIn if you are on an audio podcast platform only. So it's tracycramperkins.com. And you can also get her book. I highly recommend getting her book, 5 stars all the way. Tracy, thank you for being here today. And again, we're sorry about the background noise.
Oh, Dr. Jacalyn, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been fun.
We always have fun. And let's close out with your theory or your motto or your life lessons about laughing.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to laugh. You have to laugh. Let's just put it that way. Laughter is the joy of life. It will lower your blood pressure, and it will give you your daily dose, which is let's see, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So enjoy.
The last laugh is on you, Tracy.
Okay.
You've got such a great laugh. Thank you for being here, Tracy. And we look forward to seeing you. And for everybody watching, stay tuned because we're going to be sharing some more information from Tracy directly. Tracy, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. So for all of you out there who are watching or listening, I'm sure that each and one of you is iconic in your own way. So thank you for all that you do to make the world a better place and for helping other people. We want to share a little bit of information from Tracy directly. So take a look at this and we'll be right back. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to tracycramperkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio. Hello again and welcome back. Please do go and pick up a copy of Tracy's book over on her website, tracycramperkins.com. And now we're going to watch a little edu commercial. I think it's called Education from Tracy with some tips. So stay tuned and get out your pen or pencil, start taking some notes. Here we go. 5 little known secrets for dementia caregivers with Tracy Cram Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me, we'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us. So it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take us long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones. Hello again. Thank you for watching. And as I mentioned, I've purchased a copy of Tracy's book, as have family members of mine. And when my mother passed on, I actually shared the book with another friend whose sadly father passed away, and she's since given it to someone else. So please do share the information, but more importantly, go pick up a copy of your own on Tracy's website, tracycramperkins.com. She's won many awards, and she really has written in a way that you can just take it to heart and feel like you're not alone. So for all of the caregivers out there around the world, whatever it is that you are helping your loved one with, thank goodness for you, because we can't do it alone. Remember to take good care of yourself, and remember to give yourself grace. We are signing off, and we'll be back with our next show. Thank you again for watching, and thank you, Tracy Cram Perkins, for being here today. Goodbye for now. Dr. Jacalyn signing off.
Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? In a world quick to judge, one book dares to reveal the hidden cost of silence. Discover holy but harmful, the silent sin of judgment, how hidden judgments destroy relationships and damage lives, by Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. The Amazon #1 bestseller that's transforming the way we understand ourselves and the way we see others. Pick up the companion workbook to uncover your own hidden judgments and learn how to break free from them. Available now on Amazon and at fine bookstores worldwide.
Listen, babe, now, listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now, listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now, listen, babe, now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations. meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.